Coucou les amis, comment allez-vous aujourd'hui? I hope that you are wonderful. Welcome to Etincelle. I'm Gracia Susuzande, your host of today. How you doing? I'm so happy to have you always and forever. Honestly, I love to be in front of you, in front of the screen in order to enlighten you and myself. Honestly, Etincelle is all about changing sometimes also your ways of thinking. Etincelle is all about bringing light into a solution of, a problem, because you know the light is the solution, right? So I hope that you're connected. I hope that you're ready. I hope that you attach yourself, because today is all about this beautiful woman who has a testimony, who wants to inspire you to come out of the hole. So you want to know more about it, please stay tuned. Stay tuned. Don't go anywhere. If you want to take your break to the loo, popcorn, I don't know, whatever. You want to call a friend to come in, because it's about to go down. See you in a minute. No, but that's a good vibe in the studio. I wish you were here to join me with celui qui gère le média en ce moment, Coralie Chumke, boss right now. So anyway, let's fix ourselves back together on this show right now. So what's gonna happen is I'm gonna quickly remind you that we are on YouTube literally every single Monday at 8 p.m. and we're really asking you to connect. We're asking you to, to join in. We're asking you to subscribe, to leave comments, to tell a friend, because honestly, Etincelle cannot run by itself. It needs you. You are the star basically of the show. So if I'm sitting here, it's not because I want to talk to myself, but because I want to talk to you and bring more information to you, to your home, to your heart, to your family, and so forth. So before we tap in, last time we tapped onto a subject that was quite sensitive, and it's the woman and his bruises, the woman and his all his, all her. We already said that women are fragile. Yes, they are, but damn, women can also be strong, especially when there's a lot of, beating up, and still they're covering themselves, still they're hiding all the things that's happening within them. And I said so much, so in case you missed it, please go on the show and check it out, because you never know. It may, enlighten you, maybe someone next to you. And we said that it's important for the people that is around them, around the woman, around that person, to be able to open their eyes to really acknowledge and see what's happening, with her. What is it that she needs? Like, how can we come together in order to help? And there's so much more that I said. But today, I came across a testimony. And this lady, she's not Christian. She's actually Muslim. But growing up in a difficult upbringing, I mean, her dad literally cursed her and wished that she should never be alive. I mean, you could probably expect that from a friend. You could maybe expect that from someone that you barely know, but expecting it from your own dad that tells you should never be alive, you should have been dead, this and that. And her journey, oh my God, it was crazy. So I'm not gonna talk too much. I'm just gonna give you that little snap for you to see exactly what it's all about. So please join me as I am about to ask the regie to play this. Oh wow, I hope that you have your tissues right next to you, because it's gonna be emotional. See you in a minute.
I'm Nina Olk, and I'm going to be sharing my story with you today of how I survived death many a times with regards to gender-based violence. Gender-based violence is a description of when a girl is treated badly because of her gender. My heritage is Indian. I'm born and raised in the United Kingdom, a few hours away from London, and I was the youngest of 3 children, but I was the only girl born into the family. By the age of 6, I was only allowed to come out of my room when I was called upon to cook or clean. I wasn't allowed to sit with the family, to eat, to watch television. I had no verbal communication with anybody. I always went to school a dirty child because I wasn't allowed to wash my own clothes. The teachers didn't pick up on that. Most Asian girls, most African girls, we cower forwards and keep our eyes down, not to make eye contact, because that eye contact can aggravate a male to be angry with us. By 6, it was just me that was cooking in the kitchen for the whole family. So I was a modern day slave. And I remember feeling quite groggy and sleepy one night, and I was woken by my mother. She got me up, and when I came down the stairs, I understood I had to cook. And on this particular night, I came down the stairs, I prepared the food, and then I handed it on a tray to my father through the door and left. And my job was then to stay and wait until they'd finished to clear up the plates. And then I heard the call. In my language, there's a word called bhutani, which means like an evil spirit, a witch, because they believed I was an evil spirit and I had brought bad luck to them being born a girl. As I went into the room, my whole body seemed to reject wanting to go in, and I talk about that gut feeling that people call, and I knew I shouldn't go in, but I feel no choice. And as I walked in with my eyes down, my father grabbed my wrist and he threw me onto the table where the dishes fell off the table and the tray, and I didn't know what was happening, but I knew it was wrong. And the first person to rape me was my father, and it led to a very long ordeal, which was very violent, and they raped me continuously. And I remember not being on the table at one point. I was in and out of consciousness. A lot of them had disappeared, but there was one of my father's friends who stayed, who raped me again. When I did eventually wake up, because I'd passed out, there were cuts and bruises all over my body. I didn't really understand what had happened, but I knew it was wrong. And the person that woke me up was my mother. She opened the door to the room and she slammed it very hard, which startled me. And I looked towards the bottom of the door and saw her feet. And then she did it again. And I remember looking around and thinking, I'm in so much trouble because all the plates are broken. There's food that stained the floor. I was cut in places. I had so many red marks and bruises. And as I said, I was bleeding very, very badly. I was in so much pain. I remember feeling so much pain below. I asked my mother, could I shower? She said yes. My mother wouldn't let me use the shower, but she would let me use a bucket, and I filled the bucket up with water and washed that way. She told me to clean the floor, and I went into the room and managed to get my blood out of the carpet. I remember taking like a bucket almost and putting all the broken plates in and washing everything. But whilst that was happening, I was trying not to cry because I never cried really since a child. I was just breaking and falling apart. Girls are so disregarded since the day they're born. They're mistreated in so many ways, and sexual abuse is more common than we know in cultures such as mine. But people don't speak out about it because of the stigma and taboo systemized around it. But it does exist. So I was pregnant from the night of the rape, and having told my mother that my periods had stopped, she called my father. When he came, he was really cross, he was really angry, and he said that I had ruined his life. I had brought shame upon the family, that now he was going to have to sort this problem out. I ended up at a clinic. I remember lying down on like a stretcher type of bed. I remember having gas and air. The next thing I knew, I'm in a gown and I'm sitting outside. And it was the first time someone spoke to me with love. The lady, I've said this many times, came out with a cup of tea. She actually handed me the tea, but she stroked my hair. And I remember thinking, God, how bad can I be that she just touched my dirty hair and she called me love? She is so kind. And I didn't say help me because I didn't know I could ask for help. I was still living in this pre-programmed mindset that this is the way my life's supposed to be. I had no self-worth. I was young, I was confused, and I was really, really broken. I just turned 15 when all of this was happening. I remember driving back from the clinic, and my father and mother were both saying the same thing, that she would have been better off dying when she was born. At those days, because I'm born in 1970, there were no systems to check what sex your baby was. And if the baby was a baby girl, they would go to somebody's house, like my mother's house, and they would put the baby in a plastic bag if it was a girl and suffocate the baby and get rid of it. So I, in the back of the car, this young 15-year-old girl, decided I would take my own life because everyone would be better off without me, wouldn't they? Nobody seemed to want me, not even myself. I felt I couldn't even do that right because my parents came upstairs. They noticed I didn't come down when they called me to cook. So they came up and they just beat me. They beat me for trying to kill myself, which confused me because if they didn't want me, why were they doing this? So I thought to myself, maybe they did want me. Maybe they do care. He said that they'd found a solution. I was led into the guest room, which is the same room in which I was raped, and I hadn't really been in there very much since, and I was fearful. I heard a voice of one of the men that had raped me, and with him was his wife, and they said that we're going to do the engagement now, and I understand I'm going to marry the son of the person that raped me. So I'm marrying the son in a sham wedding so that when I'm married I can be a sex servant and a domestic servant for the man that raped me. So this child marriage was arranged, and then came the trade. They exchanged money, they exchanged gold. My father had to give him kitchen equipment like washing machines, which were expensive back then, and I was really scared that once I got to my marital home that I would be gang raped again. And when I had the marriage ceremony, there's normally a party. I got to the party where everybody was dancing, but I was told I had to go home. I was there literally for 10 minutes. I saw the groom. I saw people because I was in a separate room, but I could see people from there. Nobody saw me. And I went home. I was dropped off on my own, and I was in the house all alone. And I remember sitting in my room, which was bare. It had always been bare, looking at my books. I was just wondering what was going to come next. And before I knew it, they were back. They came to take me to the new home. And my mother-in-law told me as soon as I stepped in the door to take off my gold that I was wearing for the ceremony. She told me to take off my Indian sari that I was wearing because it's very expensive. And she gave me a very old Punjabi suit, the tunic and the bottoms to put on. And then she led me to a room, and it was downstairs, and it was very small. It was literally like a cupboard. There was a small makeshift single bed, and opposite was like a cupboard that you could put things in. No mirror, nothing, no door. And she said, this is where you'll be. You will just need the kitchen, and you will look after us the way you looked after your parents. I was there for 4 years. Every day I pulled out my father-in-law's hands out of my underwear, pushed him off me. He raped me. He sexually abused me. There was a control-driven adult that bullied me every day. My mother-in-law, when I at first started to plate my own food, would throw my food with the plate into the dustbin and tell me to eat out of the bin. And at first I started to, but then I kind of gave up and I didn't eat anymore. The mistake they made was they were greedy for money. So they asked me to find a job. And it was the first time I was exposed to the real world, really. I would walk to work and I found this amazing job, and I created a different persona because I needed to earn to please my mother and father-in-law. I started off as a clerical assistant. I managed to get a managerial job by the age of 17, 18. And I made 2 friends who started noticing that things weren't okay with my appearance, because sometimes I would have bruises or bite marks because my father-in-law would bite me a lot whilst raping me. So I started to tell one of the girls, because she was from the same culture as me. She had this Nigerian boyfriend from Africa, and they both seemed very caring and they seemed concerned. But she said to me, go back home. Just don't go to your in-laws. Just leave and go home. Just do it. Your mum and dad will love you because you're 21 now, right? People say, but why would you go home if that's where you were raped and treated so badly from birth? But when you have nobody else, when you have no self-worth and you're quite a naive 21-year-old, you go to what you know. You go back to the place that you know. I didn't need them to solve any problems. I just needed some human interaction of a loving kind. Somebody had seen me get on the bus that was from our community. I stood at the door and knocked on it, and my father opened the door. He grabbed my hair, literally forced me into the house. But it was the words he was using that I had found myself in the gutter now. That I was a prostitute, that I was good for nothing, that I should have died. My mother failed him by birthing a girl. My eldest brother was there, who's 7 years older than me, and they both started to beat me. And I felt this is not like a normal beating. They were trying to kill me, and they kept using the word honour killing, that they had to maintain the respect. I remember looking forward on the floor, and my mother's feet were there, and my sister-in-law, and they were just standing there, and I feverishly looked up, trying to not make eye contact, but I was desperately needing someone to help me. And I thought if they see me looking up, they may help me. But they just were very, very angry. They had their arms crossed. And I do believe at that point I left my body completely because the pain stopped. And I remember looking at myself from the outside in saying, it's not time yet for you to go. And then my brother came, and my other brother, who said, not here. And they just stopped and quickly disappeared. And I lay there for, I say 3 days, but I don't know if I'm being hand on heart honest. My mother's friend, she opened the door and said, they're sending you to India on Sunday. I had no idea what day it was, but she said, Sunday, they're sending you to India, ask for help at security. And she went, she just closed the door and disappeared. I started to talk to myself. It's the only thing I could do. And I asked myself the serious question, do you want to live, or are you ready just to give up? And I don't know why. but I wanted to live. I knew that I wanted to live, and I decided I was going. I didn't know where I was going. I thought the people that had tried to help me before from work, they had told me where they lived. So I thought, well, I can find them. They'll help me, won't they? It was my mind that got me to move, and I would try and pick myself up on my hands and knees, and I couldn't do it. So I was using this part of my arms to bring myself up and shuffle forward. I got to the door. Then I had the problem of reaching the handle, and I remember trying to reach, but this arm was broken, and I had a very short window of opportunity in which I could leave. But somehow I got out, and then I was faced with this 6-foot high wall, which sounds very fictional, but it was true. And I remember thinking, I can't do this. I couldn't even stand up. And it's really weird because my dog came and sat next to me. She looked at me and she looked up to say go. I don't know how I did it, but I believed I could. And I remember getting over that fence, falling down and collapsing on the other side. And I made it to a taxi rank. And that's where I got some help. One of the drivers turned up. Is somebody after you? And I said, yes. He covered me with a blanket. And he could have been anyone, but I believe in angels, and I believe that angels have crossed my path more than once. And I ended up being in hospital for 2 months, but I ended up making my way to where my friends were because I still had this hope that they would help me. And when I got there, I learned that my friend, she had left. But he answered the door. He said, look, you can stay here, but you have to pay me rent. I've got 2 rooms. And I said, okay, thank you. I said, but I can't work just yet because I'm not really completely well. Then he said, well, you know, you could owe me. I thought he's another person that's saving me, you know, giving me a place to stay. And I thought only good things of him. But I ended up going to a party with my friend who would let me stay in his house. And I was excited because I'd never been to a party. I'd never been invited anywhere. And I thought suddenly someone's asking me to go somewhere. And as I got to this party, he was giving me Coke to drink, which I later discovered wasn't Coke, it was Malibu. And he got me drunk. He'd obviously taken advantage of me and raped me and got me pregnant. But I kind of selfishly wanted something for me. And I gave birth to a daughter. And I really believed I'd changed the cycles of abuse because I celebrated her not understanding the situation I was in with my new partner now. And my daughter was my reason for me wanting to start earning more money than I'd ever seen in my life. And I said to my daughter, I'm going to give you everything I never had. I'm going to love you from the depth of my heart. I will protect you. And I started creating businesses from a spare room because we had 3 bedrooms, so I had a spare room. And before I knew it, I'd extended this business into a small shop into the town centre. We had bought a house. I bought a house, and I had put my partner's name on everything. He wasn't working. I was the only bread earner. You know, every weekend he was out drinking. But again, I didn't think it was odd because that's what I knew from a young age, that's what men do. And we went on then to have a son who was born. He's my first son, and he seemed quite happy when my son was born. And I thought, this is going to change our relationship, things are going to get better. And I started to develop the businesses, and I was doing really, really well and looking after my partner whilst he's doing what he wants to do. I'm giving him money so he can spend it wherever he wants, not questioning things again. But the violence was starting to escalate. The violence was very mental abusive to start with, you know, the restriction of money, not allowed any friends, not allowed to go anywhere. It was those sort of restrictions, but it became more violent with being pushed down the stairs, being punched, being kicked. I didn't know what I was doing wrong, but I never seemed to do anything right either. And in front of the children, I would always smile because I didn't want them to ever remember me crying, I guess. And then one evening, my partner was going out and he wanted more money than I had. I didn't have it. He was angry. My partner pushed me down the stairs and left. And I remember lying at the bottom of the stairs, unable to get up because I was in a lot of pain. I felt like I felt a foot coming out of me. And I got to hospital and I gave birth to my 3rd child, who died not long after he was born, but he was perfect. And that's when I switched off, I guess, from the world. I was in a maternity ward where babies are crying. But mine wasn't. I don't have anyone with me. And I just remember feeling like I wished it was me that was dead, not him. wanted to organise a funeral for my baby, but my partner said I couldn't. And I begged the hospital to help me. So they organised a service. I think it was probably the hardest thing I had to do, attend my own baby's funeral. And I've been through a lot of trauma, abuse. But when your arms are empty and they long for that child, nothing really fills them. And time went on, the abuse got worse. He would sometimes strangle me to a point where I was sure I was going to die. He would push my head underwater as a punishment when the children were at school. I have recordings of him admitting that he set my pillow on fire because he said he was trying to get a message through to me because he was fed up with me. And I remember waking up a second time with my hair was alight because there's a distinctive smell when your hair is on fire. But it was the words that broke me, that I was too fat, I was too ugly, that nobody would want me. He said my children would hate me in the end. This carried on. My daughter went to university. She noticed things were wrong. She started to question him and said, don't treat mummy that way. So his solution to that was to cut me off and not let her have any interaction with us. Snapchat had just come about and I would send her a Snapchat, and that was my way of letting her know that I was okay. I had to leave the phone on a table where he could see it, and if he fell asleep I'd rush and get the phone, run to the bathroom, text her to say I'm fine, delete the message and go put it back. My daughter received a text message and the message said I'm sorry, and it was a photo of me asleep on the sofa and her brother was slumped on a table in a very strange way, like he'd passed out. She ran out of her lecture theatre and made a call to the home. So she woke me up and she said to me, are you okay? And I said, my throat feels very dry. Just give me a minute. And I'm still on the phone to her and I've gone to the kitchen to get a glass of water. And I see that he's turned all the taps on the stove on and the house is full of gas, just waiting to explode. I somehow pick up my 15-year-old son and take him upstairs, not out the house, upstairs, and I hear the door lock. Every night he would lock the bedroom doors at 11 p.m. and reopen the doors at 5 a.m. And I remember just sitting there holding my son and thinking, what do I do? The sensible thing would be to leave. I had no common sense. And when you're in a relationship where somebody is a narcissistic person and it's domestic violence, you have no idea that you can actually just take the step out of the house yourself. You don't have the strength to ask for help. And asking for help is one of the hardest things that you can do. And it was my son that was brave enough to say at school, I need help. I can't take this anymore. We were removed by social services. The police were involved when the school heard how serious the matter was. We were put into a safe house and I go to the other room and it was the first time after a long time. I was with my partner for 23 years where I never cried with him. And I let them out that day and I cried and I cried and I cried and I looked down and I remember there was this puddle that I'd created, literally a puddle of tears. And I said, Nina, what are you going to do? Are you going to dance in these tears? Because if you don't, you're going to drown in them. This is what you have to do. I was told because on paper you have all of this money, we can't support you as the government, so you're out on the street. We became homeless. And it was, again, somebody from the school who knew what was going on. And she opened her doors to us and her home and said, look, I want you to live with me. I don't expect anything from you. And I focused on earning money. So I cleaned toilets. I worked for people that I used to sell to when I had my own businesses. I started to go and work in their factories, doing some packing jobs for £2 an hour. And by the end of this 30 days, I had enough money to pay for 2 months up front to a landlord that I could find that would rent to me. It was just me and my son there. And instead of things coming together, they weren't. And I didn't ever say to him, are you okay? Because we don't do that. We just talk at our children. We never ask them the questions we need to ask. And my youngest son became very depressed, as did my son that was at boarding school. My son at boarding school was self-harming and I didn't know. And my youngest son ran away. He left a suicide note. He borrowed some money and got to Miami in the hope to buy a gun so he could shoot himself. And I was determined not to lose this child. I've moved away over 400 miles from the area I was born in. And that was probably the best thing that happened in my life, for not just myself, but my whole family, my children. I was no longer looking over my shoulder. I wasn't rushing into a shop and rushing out in case somebody saw me, because slowly and slowly I started to discover there was freedom on the other side of fear. I was almost like a child living in an adult's body. And I remember standing when it had been raining and the grass was wet, and I connect with Mother Nature, as I call it, and I ground. And I decided that I got to decide if I was pretty or not, if I was Rapunzel or not. Externally, we can do things to ourselves and change our appearance and change our hair and put on makeup and wear jewelry and expensive clothes. But if you don't feel it internally, nothing on the outside will ever give you that real love that you need. And I knew from a young child, I had done nothing but love others. I was not born into love, but I was love itself. And I decided I would weaponize that love, and I would love the fear out of anybody that had fear in them. I would love the fear out of victims. I would love the fear out of survivors who didn't know how to move on with their traumas. And I would do something to change other people's lives, because suddenly I was in love, and it was my first love. And that love, other than my children's, was for me. My first ever public talk was a TED talk, and I did it for my sister because I discovered I had a half sister I'd never knew about. My father had had an extramarital affair. He'd abducted his 6-year-old daughter, his illegitimate daughter, without anybody knowing. I found out after I did the first talk that he had sold her to human traffickers and left her in a place where they harvest organs. And in my TED talk I say, which is titled, "Is there any honour in killing?" because the two words just don't go together. He lost respect from everyone by having an extramarital affair and having a daughter, and the daughter was still alive. And he was imprisoned, but abduction serves a small sentence. So he came out, and when he came out, he was celebrated by the community for doing an honourable thing. So I decided to do this TED talk to ask for change. And I tell my story primarily for her, because she's a representation of all of the girls that are out there whose parents let them down, who get let down by social services and governments and police, all the people that are supposed to protect them. I know there are millions and millions of other Ninas living my old life who from one point or another have experienced or are experiencing something that I went through, and I don't want that for anyone, because when you suffer you really want to help protect everybody else from suffering, and that's where I'm at today. If there's anybody out there that's suffering from gender-based violence, be it abuse of a sexual nature or a mental abuse or physical abuse, know that it's wrong. We're taught that we are supposed to live and die for our parents, that we have this duty to fulfill for them, and that's not true. It's not selfish to think about your own life and your own safety. I know now, as I stand in my truth, how much I do matter, and you all matter out there, whether you're female, male, whoever you are, you matter. First thing you should do is to talk to somebody, speak to a friend. Charities, non-profits like my own, we are here to actually serve you and to give you that hand, because we were once that person. Please ask for help. I started my organisation over a year ago. The organisation is called endhonourkillings.org, and I'm really proud to say that we've helped women and children escape from forced marriages, sexual abuse and domestic violence, and it's getting bigger because we have more volunteers coming on board. Since I've been speaking out, I have numerous death threats from my family. I speak about human trafficking very openly. By speaking about something, people are educated it, and they can actually take steps to help another person. They know the signs, they look out for things. I just want to say thank you for listening to my story. You may have heard 1,000 times, but it's true that you can do whatever you put your mind to. I say you deserve to be living your life, not just putting one foot in front of the other every day just to exist. If you need me, I'm sure you'll see the links down below. I am known as London's life coach, and I will always reach out to you. If you are struggling and you are suffering from any of the traumas that I've mentioned today, please reach out to somebody. Tomorrow doesn't exist. You've only got today, and you deserve it. You deserve to get out of that situation today, and things will get better. I was homeless 6 years ago, and I'm here now living my life happily with gratitude with my 3 amazing children. Thank you.
So, how was it? How did you find this? I'll say it's even short, because she kept a lot of details out in order not to shock people. and I believe it's maybe for the best. But is it really? Her journey from the age of less than 15, or maybe even since she was born, to the age of, I don't know exactly because she didn't really mention how old she is now. Honestly, is a lot of things that has happened to her that we can't even seem to imagine. Honestly, like I don't even know. When I watched this video for the first time, my heart came out. It went back in. It came out again. And I couldn't hold my heart, because honestly, this is not the first time that I'm listening to, someone getting raped by their parents, someone getting, being sold to somebody else by their parents, someone getting, been abused for so long and allowed by their parents. So at the end of the day, we are meant to have people in our life in order. When I say people, I'm talking about parents. We're supposed to have parents that actually protect us, that love us, that keeps us safe, that make sure that guard us. That make sure that we are developing and growing in although the world is not the most beautiful, peaceful place, but to make sure that actually nothing truly really happens to us. So now, if we are not even protected by our own parents, we are not even loved and cared for by our own parents, it's crazy. Then who is truly meant to love us? Because the first people is the one that actually gave birth to us. And this young lady went through so much. And so I'm sure that there is a lot of young ladies out there who are listening to this show of Etincelle. And I really wanted to say to you that is listening, you are not alone. Regardless of the bruises, regardless of the trauma, regardless of the pain that you're probably still going through right now, we are together. You are not alone. Don't ever think that you are alone. And if nobody, hear me out, if nobody can believe in you, I believe in you. I believe in you. I don't need to know you to believe in you, because this is a story that you went through. This is a story that you carried yourself for so long. So apart from that, I got to understand that we have people that we can also turn to whenever there are situations such as that. And in case if you're a believer, you have your pastor. You have a pastor. In case maybe you're a believer but you don't have a church, right? You are a believer but around you things are not really, working out properly. You can't seem to find time to actually attend a church. Look for a church. Look for someone that can possibly come across, someone that can help you out in that situation. Because sometimes it feels difficult, heavy to be able to turn to a family member or even a best friend or someone, and you feel like maybe a stranger will listen to me better. Then maybe if it is, then go for it. But do not keep it in, because a sexual trauma can destroy your life, because you're carrying basically with you every single day this heavy stone. And it's like there's not a day that you're living aside, because you sleep, you wake up, you have it with you. You go to work, you come back, you still have it with you. You feel like you think you're moving forward, but as long as you're still holding on this heavy stone with you, honestly, you are not free. And it's not just in your mind, because all these attacks, all this situation has happened to your flesh, has happened to your body. So you have marks on you, physical, mental, emotional, spiritual. And all these things can easily block you, can easily stop you from truly moving forward. And forgetting about it is not the right solution. Deal with it. And there's many ways to deal with it. Sometimes it's trying to forgive yourself. I mean, she said herself in the video, she said that it's like, this is all she knew. Whenever there was something, there was a situation, she couldn't even leave the house. She couldn't even, you know, go away, because this is all she knew. That life is all she knew. So it's like she couldn't even break through to be able to even to stand up after being beaten up by her brother and her dad. She wasn't able to stand up on her feet, on her both feet, and be able to leave. It's like she had to pick up herself. What kind of life is that? And there are so many ladies, so many young girls who are still being sold across the world for money, their organs. They keep on selling. I mean, if you are a parent that is actually watching me right now, you should be ashamed of yourself. You should be ashamed of yourself to do what you are doing. What if it was you? What if it was you in that situation? Sometimes, like, we don't understand, we don't acknowledge the consequences that we put our children through. It doesn't mean because you went through so much, you were, I don't know, abused, that your child needs to also go through that journey. It doesn't mean because you were bitten that your child needs to be bitten. You know, it doesn't mean because you were insulted that your child needs to be, you know, insulted as well. It doesn't mean because you went through hard time that your child needs to still go through the hard time too. I mean, where is the love? It doesn't mean because you lack love that your child needs to go through the same thing. Parents need to wake up. These children are growing up with bruises. These children are growing up and are continue basically to pass on their bruises to another generation, to the next generation, to the next generation, to the next generation. I mean, it still continue. When is this going to stop? I'm taking this personal because at the end of the day, I'm a woman. And yes, there are situations that I personally went through as well. But I found someone, people, to whom I could turn to and say, this is what happened to me. And I spoke about, although it was difficult. And it's not too late for you that's watching me right now. Whether you are doing pageant, whether you are in a big company, you're running through, you know, big stuff, and you're maybe a millionaire, I don't know, billionaire, I don't know, you're doing so well, your mother, you're not. I mean, regardless the statue or the things you're doing around the world, if this happened to you, this is the time to let it go. And there's so many steps to take in order to let it go. You can still find a therapist, a professional therapist to whom you can go to, speak to, someone that can listen to you, someone that can pay attention to you, someone that can give you the time in order to help you to heal that broken heart. She said it as well in her video. She said she was broken since her young age. I mean, where are these women? Where are the moms across the nation? Where are they? Where are the moms that we can actually say mom? Like, where are the women who has a heart for their children? Where are they? Because her mom was right there looking. You know, her mom knew what happened to her, and she couldn't even help it to escape. Her mom knew about every single thing that was happening to her and couldn't even hold it in her arms, say, I'm here for you. I mean, even the what's it called? Her mother-in-law took everything out of her, the jewelries that she was wearing for her wedding, and led her to a place, basically a prison. And she knew exactly what would have happened to her. Getting abused, sexually abused by her husband, biting her. I mean, doing her so wrong. And for all the men out there, the young boys who can find it so easily to drug young ladies in order to sexually abuse them. Honestly, like, I'm furious. I'm actually furious. How can you do that? How actually can you find yourself in that situation? Actually plan that. You know, tell yourself, like, when my friend comes, this is what I'm gonna do, this is what I'm gonna do, this is what I'm gonna do, and actually call maybe friends in order to gang abuse this young lady. For her to find herself maybe pregnant, and maybe to be able, maybe this could literally take her to lose her life. How? How do you find this okay? How can communities around the world actually, praise a man such as this after coming out of prison, and praise him for, you know, for the good things for the bad things that he's done? This is crazy. I mean, I don't understand this, and this is why I felt that it was important to put this together. I mean, I had to bring this. When I came across this testimony, I could not hide it from myself. You know, I told myself, let me speak less and let this woman actually speak for herself. Let me reduce myself a little bit and let this woman speak for herself. Please stop this. Please stop killing the generation upcoming. Please stop breaking young ladies' hearts. Stop killing and breaking the girls that you're upbringing. She said something that really hurt me is back in the day, young girls, I mean, if you're pregnant for a young girl, they'll take the baby girl and actually place a plastic bag on her head and suffocate her, to the point of the goal is to kill the baby. Really? And unfortunately, these kind of actions still happening. Please, can we change the world? Can we change the world with our actions? Can we change the world? Can we please change the world with our action? Can we actually love our children with what we have? Can we take care of the ones that we are bringing to this world? Can we do that? Can we actually do that? I'm crying in my heart because there are so many young girls who have been missing, raped, killed, sacrificed, and so much more. For money, for honor, for religion, for the wrong reasons. Please, I beg you, let this video really go through in your heart. May you take time to listen to this. Let it sink in you. And please, may you take the right decision for tomorrow. There were so many things that I wrote that I wanted to speak about, but I really wanted to speak with my heart. There's help that you can definitely take in order to heal yourself. So please, don't keep on carry on, you know, in this hurt, in this brokenness. Heal yourself so you can be able to heal others. She didn't stay there. She continued to stand up for herself after even having her children. And today she's doing a great work. She's standing up for all these other women who are literally going through that. And especially for her sister who was sold by her dad. Oh my God. This is the end of the show. And I really wanted to communicate with you through Etincelle, because Etincelle is all about bringing light into someone's life. Is to educate someone who wasn't educated at all. I'm talking about bringing knowledge into a field that you didn't know. And I hope that this show of today, you know, touched your heart, your mind and your soul in order to do better. Please do better. Or at least two, I don't know. Honestly. Let's meet again next week. Next week, I may be by myself. I may have a guest. But connect yourself next week. Tell a friend to tell a friend. Bring more people into the field. Please. Let's do this together. I'm Gracia Susuzande, your host of Etincelle, and I'll see you next week. Take care of yourself. Love you. Bye-bye.
VOIS